familiar with the Barnum and Bailey circus, right?
They're the three-ring circus. That's an Oddfellows symbol, the Order of the Oddfellows. And that's where a lot of the secret societies come from, that, and they used to be orphanages and asylums that were all over the United States.
Well, I love that you know that about those people. That's who runs Supercross. It's crazy. It's almost unbelievable. I don't know that I'd believe it if I wasn't a victim of it. They served me papers, sent the FBI to my house, banned me from all events, cease and desist. I was getting a legal letter like every other day for like a week. Yeah, that's who we're dealing with.
The world keeps lying, but he won't retreat on his quest for truth. Yeah. Truth, quest for truth. They can't stop me, they can't block me. Moving through, got that fire, they can't block me. Quest for truth, breaking chains, making waves. That's what I do. When they hate, I create.
I have Cooksey in the building, and Cooksey, welcome to the broadcast.
Hey, what's happening? I heard you got a pretty cool show, and we have a mutual friend over at Nano Extreme, and yeah, he said we need to talk.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, Mike Grundahl, founder of Planet Fitness. He's an awesome guy. I got a chance to hang out with him for a couple days just not that long ago, and he's like, dude, you have to interview Cooksey. You want to talk about a conspiracy? He's like, this is a conspiracy. So I'm excited to get into it, man.
Oh, it's crazy. I tell people outside of the industry about what's going on, and they look at it and they go, it's just dirt bike racing. There's no way it's this mobster style thing where it's crazy. It's almost unbelievable. I don't know that I'd believe it if I wasn't a victim of it.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into it. I got a lot of questions because I'm not in the industry, but I know that you are, and everybody that's in it pretty much knows who you are, and probably knows who Mike is as well in the industry, because I know he did it for a long time. And I think that, you know, there was a guy that came that there was a sponsorship that was taking place, and I think we'll get into some of that stuff here in a little bit, but I'm excited to do it. Tell people a little bit about your background. That way they can better understand your qualifications on this subject.
Man, I'll do it as short as possible. I was a racer. I lived the dream. I was a kid. I was ranked top 10 in the country at like 14 years old. I was on my way to motocross stardom. Then I had some injuries. It just didn't quite work out. And I realized early enough I wasn't going to make money. Went to college, went that route, decided I wanted to get back into the industry. So I have professional racing experience, but I also wanted to help the sport after seeing it from the outside. So I was working in the industry. I started doing a little bit of journalism, and I got closer to the sport and what makes it operate. Because when you look at it from the outside, it looks great. It's the fireworks, the racing. You don't understand what's happening underneath it. And as I did that, I started to say truths, and I got some heat, some blowback. And man, the way they came at me essentially got me out of the job in the industry because they pulled so many favors. And finally, it got to the point where it got crazy, and I started just saying, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to say the truth. Do what you want to me. If I got to go work in a different industry, so be it. But I'm not going to cover up their bullshit.
Yeah, man. I know that what we're going to be talking about tonight is pretty intense, like some of the stuff that, you know, that happened to you. But before we get started, I have a few questions that I want to ask. So for those of my audience that are listening, because we cover a variety of topics, you know, all kinds of conspiracies, but also paranormal type stuff too. What is Supercross?
Okay, so Supercross is a construct of motocross. Motocross originally began like the 70s from BMX. You get a motorcycle, you race outdoors around a track. Well, I think it was early 80s, a guy had said, you know what, this would be really cool if we could put it in a stadium, build a track, and let people watch the entire race. Because when you watch outdoors, you only see a section or two. And Mike Goodwin was his name, brought it into the stadium, and that was indoor motocross. So that's Supercross. But it's just essentially outdoor motocross brought into a stadium for the fans.
So I guess that gets to our next question, because you talk about, you know, interesting stuff going on within the works. And I've been looking at a lot of industries, and they seem to all kind of have a common thread in them where the people running it have some deep, dark secrets, something going on behind closed doors. And so who runs Supercross right now?
Wow. Okay. So you're familiar with the Barnum and Bailey circus, right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
So you got Kenneth Feld, his dad. Do you know the history on that?
Well, I know this about the Barnum and Bailey circus. So they're the three ring circus, and this is like real conspiratorial if you really want to get back into it. But that's an Odd Fellows symbol, the Order of the Odd Fellows, and so that's where a lot of the secret societies come from. That, and they used to be orphanages and asylums that were all over the United States. So I'll have to send you a link to one of my broadcasts about that.
Well, I love that you know that about those people. That's who runs Supercross, the Feld family. They bought it and they're in charge of it. I mean, this is Kenneth Feld, a guy who, if you look into it, there was a story that broke a while ago. His dad had that checkered past that you're talking about. He was into some crazy sexual stuff, and a lady did a story and kind of exposed him and just said what was true. And Kenneth Feld was so mad, he used whatever pull he had with these societies to get a former CIA agent to follow this journalist for 10 years and like flatten her tire, ruin job opportunities, and mess with it. They even hired a bodybuilder to like try and break up her marriage. For 10 years, they harassed this woman. They got caught. And 60 Minutes did something on it. But that's the people and the kind of mentality we're dealing with. And they bought Supercross, and they've really exploited and taken advantage of this. Like, people who ride motocross and Supercross, we put our lives into it, and we all trust it, and we all want this thing to grow. And it's almost like we bond together because the outside world looks at it and goes, that's stupid. You're racing a dirt bike. You're going to get hurt. Why would you ever do that? So we get really protective. And they've used that protective attitude that we have, don't hurt the sport, to completely exploit it. And man, it's gnarly.
So what year did they actually buy the industry? Was it 2008? Or am I right in saying that, around then?
Early 2000s. Now, they bought it in early 2000s, but then there's another family. So outdoor motocross is separate from Supercross.
Okay.
They were two completely different organizations. One outdoors is the Coombs family, and they're like some kind of backwoods gangsters in West Virginia. True story. They're gnarly. They had their daughter go through law school and become part of the community there, so they have a lot of juice. So they own outdoors. Feld buys Supercross, and they're actually competing, and they despised each other. And then Davey Coombs, the outdoor guy, he figured out, and he's really smart. He realized if I can control the media, I can do whatever I want. So he starts a company called RacerX, which is the biggest media platform in the sport. So he gets RacerX, runs it, gets to where he's the #1 media outlet, and he's controlling the narratives. He can say whatever he wants. He can blow out whoever he wants. He has so much power, but he needed a little bit more. So now they go to the AMA. Have you heard of the AMA, American Motorcyclist Association?
Yeah, I've heard of that, actually. I believe that's one thing I have heard of. But for people that haven't, this is basically, from what I understand, I think a lot of people donate to it, and it kind of helps with lobbying and stuff like that. Am I correct?
That's what it was created for.
Okay.
So the AMA was created to protect the rights of motorcyclists, protect our riding areas, get insurance companies to give us better rates, and really help the entire community. It was a nonprofit designed for the right reasons. Well, Davey Coombs figured out, and they ran the racing for a long time, and then they sold, and that's what's crazy. They're a nonprofit. So they started the outdoor motocross. They sanctioned Supercross, but they owned outdoor motocross, and then they sold it. But Davey Coombs bought it. He's the one that got it. He was on the board of the AMA directors, learned how they operate, learned the plan, left the board, and then 2 years later, when they put the racing up for sale, he goes, and all the tracks in the United States got together. They had a national promoters group that his dad created that kind of protected them from being exploited, each individual track. So Davey and his sister go to this auction where they're trying to get the rights to the outdoor motocross representing the national promoters group. They go in, they're bidding against a European, the guy that runs the World Series, and he comes in after 24 hours of negotiations, comes out and says, hey, the National Promoters Group didn't win their bid, but don't worry, I got it. How does that happen, right? They thought he was representing the MPG. He went in there, switched it, and bought it for MX Sports. but he got with NASCAR. NASCAR bought all the rights to all the other types of AMA racing, street bikes, flat track, and then gave him just the motocross. So it was a really scandalous deal, and he really betrayed all the track owners in the United States.
So how is this affecting, I guess, the riders, just the people that actually do it for a living? Like from what I heard from Mike, they have their promoters and agents, or all these people are colluding to kind of keep the salaries down as well.
Now that he controls outdoor motocross, and he's battling with Feld for a few years, they're going back and forth, and he controls the narratives. So if you're a rider and you complain about your salary, they destroy you with Racer X. I have multiple former pros telling him, I will destroy you with the power of the pen, and threatening them. So they're all afraid to speak out about low pay, dangerous conditions, because they know their small career will be destroyed. And it went from there, and they're battling Feld, and Feld, they do their own scandalous stuff. That's the circus that we talked about a little bit ago. Well, they eventually decided with their two battling series, if they could combine, they could sell it for more and get a significant TV package. And this is where it gets to the collusion. Now, Feld has, I spoke with some people, I got a source at Feld. Why would a promoter keep a spreadsheet of every rider's personal contracts with their own sponsors? It seems strange to me that they would collude with the agents to get that information, unless, I don't know. I cannot believe that nobody has sued them for antitrust. This is probably the biggest monopoly that I've seen. I mean, I look at NASCAR and UFC, who just lost antitrust suits. And if you just look at the facts, it's so much easier. That lawyer, Jeffrey Kessler, that just won for Jordan, please, if he's out there and he watches this, please come over here. You got yourself an easy victory. This is the most monopolized sport that I've ever seen. But yeah, they ended up working together. I don't know what the TV deal is. It's secret. But if you plug in the ratings, and I used AI these days, it's pretty easy to plug in all that and get an estimate. They estimate the TV contract is worth, at the minimum, bare minimum, if they totally got screwed on the deal, $40 million per year, likely 60 to 100 million.
Wow. And so in a lot of industries, I hear weird stuff going on, and I don't know if you're privy to a lot of this, but is there the same kind of like weird blackmail culture and, trying to get set people up and all that stuff in here as well? If you're in pain, you do not have to be. Check out Nano Extreme Pain Cream. This is the only pain cream out of all the pain creams that are on the market that all the ingredients go through all 7 layers of the skin, and it acts almost instantly. Within seconds, your pain goes away. I know this because I'm in pain a lot. I do jiu-jitsu, so I'm always having lower back pain, or I'm having carpal tunnel pain, and this knocks it out almost right away. Hundreds of you guys have already got this and have messaged me and said how great it is, and so I'm thankful for that. I'm glad you guys enjoy it. So check it out. If you follow the link in the description, you will get 25% off if you use the coupon code that they have on that site. So make sure you guys check that out. 25% off. I'm telling you, try it. Trying is believing. I've even been to the lab. This is how serious I am about making sure that the product works and how good it is. This product is worth a try. So check it out.
100%. In fact, there's an agent by the name of Lucas Myrtle who represented some of the biggest riders in the sport, the Lawrence brothers and a bunch of others. He stands up for himself. He wasn't scared to speak his mind. Well, last year, and I would imagine any sports agent at any time, they do some weird stuff with their money and their personal accounts, and they're buying crazy stuff for their clients. I can't imagine what that looks like. Well, he was going through a divorce. So he was hiding money from his ex-wife and using one of the accounts associated with the Lawrences. Now, he was personally liable. So it didn't matter what he used the money for. Either he paid it back or it came out of his pay at Wasserman. But they used that to accuse him of stealing. Not because he was stealing, because they were afraid they couldn't control. This was the only guy, as they were coming up on this big TV deal, that would say, hey, riders, we need a piece of this. They don't have it. The riders do not get any revenue sharing. If you look at the revenue split for teams and riders versus the series, they get 3%. 3% of the revenue goes back to the riders. I mean, the WNBA, they're like up in an uproar and they got like 20%. It's crazy that I don't know. I don't know how anyone would let a sport or the product only get 3% of the revenue. But their whole idea is, well, you can get your own sponsors because we give you a platform. It's like telling Tom Brady, hey, the NFL, we're not going to pay you because we put you on TV. You can go get your own side sponsors and that's good enough. It's just weird that people accept that.
It is weird, man. Out of all sports, you would imagine, because people are really literally putting their, I would say, life on the line. I mean, it's a crazy, crazy thing because they're doing some really, I would say, ballsy things. Things that I've never even thought about attempting. We were talking the other day, a few of the guys, and they're all into motocross and all into supercross, and they were talking about a wreck that happened and how the tracks are getting worse and how the safety isn't there. I mean, is that part of it too?
Yeah. And Feld, they're a circus. They don't care. They treat the riders like animals. This guy gets hurt, move him on. In fact, there's a recent situation. There was a French rider that came over, Brian Moreau, 18 years old. His very first race, he lands on his neck and he's paralyzed. Well, the safety is they chintz on everything. They get the bare minimum to maximize profits. And if you want, I have all the numbers as far as what they pay, what they cost. They literally do the bare minimum on safety crews, flaggers. They get flaggers. You would think in a sport like that, right, where you got guys jumping and racing and it's high danger, you'd want an educated safety crew. When they come into a new town, they say, hey, volunteers, anybody want to stand on the track? These people don't know what they're doing. You're taking athletes who are taking the risks, their whole lives on the line. This poor kid, Brian Moreau, so he lands and he's paralyzed. He got like the shock through his body. He's laying on the track and he's yelling at the paramedics, I can't feel my legs. So immediately they should have stopped that. It was a practice. It wasn't even a race. They should have stopped it, strapped him down. I have pictures where they picked him up and dragged him off the track. And the court case just settled. He lost because it's weird. They have him sign off all their rights. They were convicted of negligence, but it had to be gross negligence, I guess, to where it has to be intentionally wrong. I don't know how they won the case, because if you see the pictures, it sure as heck looks like gross negligence to me. But this poor kid is paralyzed from the neck down now. And he won another suit from the AMA. The AMA, he sued them separately. They settled. But here's what's crazy is now that he lost to Feld, or didn't win, they're suing him for $2.6 million. So not only did this poor kid get paralyzed from the neck down, now he has to give up the money that he got from the other suit to cover Feld's legal expenses. It's disgusting. I don't know how any human could do that to another human.
Man, and that's wild. So before they took all this stuff over, what was it like before that? Because it makes you wonder, like, how did they get their I don't know. I just think about, how did they get their claws in it? Why did they sell it? What was it like before them?
Man, motorsports is weird, and there's a lot of people that are kind of shady that come in. The guy that originally started Supercross was Mike Goodwin. He actually went to prison for murder. Him and another promoter, Mickey Thompson, got into it. You can look that one up. Mickey Thompson won in court. So Mike Goodwin hired people to have him murdered. Well, when that happened, the series kind of fell apart. And like I said, that trust, that love that we all have for this sport, this cult-like feeling, we're all going, oh crap, are we going to lose our sport? So we all kind of bond together, and it's hard to explain, but we're all like, okay, well, can somebody just take it, save it, and give us back our sport? And we were so thankful that somebody would come in, produce it the way it needs to be produced, and give us our sport, that we basically just gave them the keys to the kingdom. Feld came in and said, oh yeah, we can do this. And they're pretty good at producing events. If you watch it from the outside, it looks really good. But, all those things we gave them to make it look good and say, hey, oh, anything good for the sport, they've taken and exploited completely. Now that it's good and it's not much of a risk anymore, they're making a lot of money off of the teams and riders. And I think they could even make more. That's another thing. People think that when I come out and talk about it, they think I'm trying to say, yeah, they make too much money. I don't think that. They should make a crap ton of money. They work hard, but they're holding it back because the riders and teams need to grow with the sport. And I've researched baseball, football, and every single sport. When they include profit sharing with the athletes, racers, every single sport's growth just jumps up significantly. And they don't do that here. And I don't think like when you watch a race, it's a full stadium. You get 80 riders in the night show and they all race, but they make like $1,000 each rider. The winner of the event, $14,000. The payout is, like I said, 3% of the revenue. And I just figured it the other day, the last race in Anaheim, if you only looked at ticket sales, not sponsors, not TV contract, they paid back the purse to the riders was like 10%.
Man. So you talked about Mike Goodwin and Mickey Thompson. So was there anything fishy about that? It sounds very suspicious that this all happened. Who was Mickey Thompson? What was he like? I mean, was he just kind of another gangster trying to come in and take everything over, or what?
No, he was an off-road truck racer.
Okay.
And he raced the Baja. I don't know where he got his money. He's just a rich guy that really liked racing. From everything that I didn't know him personally, but from everybody I know that did know him, he was a nice guy. And he looked at Supercross bringing the motocross into the stadiums. He goes, man, I want to bring these Baja trucks into the stadiums. So he worked a deal with Mike Goodwin and said, hey, one of our biggest expenses is dirt. Let's partner and we can each use the stadium. You use it this week, I use it the next week. We share dirt and it works out. But like any scary partnership, it eventually went bad and then they began battling. And I mean, it's pretty, I don't know how to summarize it real quick, but once they got working together, Mike Goodwin, he was a dirty man. I mean, he was just a dick. I mean, when he walked out of the court, when he lost his settlement, I have a friend tell me that was there that he looked at him and said, I will, he said something to the extent of he's going to kill them. And then they were dead a little while longer.
Wow. That's wild, man. Yeah. It's crazy how almost seems like almost every industry, every franchise, every business, it seems like they're all being taken over by people who don't seem to have the best in mind. And, you look at our mutual friend, Mike Grundahl. I don't know how much, I'm sure you've heard, his story, but like after he left, I mean, it just went completely woke, Planet Fitness. I mean, after he sold his company, it just went so woke. And it's just like they find these really profitable, amazing things, and then they take them and just twist them up. It's so wild to me how that works.
Yeah, and they've done a pretty good job with this sport. It's not like they've ruined it, but they've controlled it. And every year they grab more control. So that, the whole thing with Supercross and motocross, and I don't know how, it wouldn't happen if Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, and these brands didn't use their advertising budgets to go racing. That's why they do it. They do it and they pay the riders. So if a rider wants to make a living, they have to sign with a team because you can't, if I just went and raced, even if I won, I'm not even going to break even. The promoter doesn't pay it back. I have to go make it for my personal sponsors. If they ever decide, hey, this isn't working for our marketing strategy, the sport would vanish. And now my idea is if you pay it back, because there is a revenue stream now at this point, there wasn't one in the late 90s when the sport was struggling, that's fine. Profit sharing only pays back in profit. It's not necessarily, hey, we're paying you no matter what. But if those guys ever do that, and if you actually gave the riders and treated them like the professional athletes they are, we'd have more, it would grow, we'd have guys race longer, their stories would be better. I just think it would be so much better. And that's the frustrating thing for me.
Yeah, it's frustrating. So I was also told that you're banned from going to the races from Supercross and motocross. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. And so I had media credentials because I was covering races and writing, and they kept telling me, you can't say that. You can't. I'm like, you can't tell me what to say. I just saw it happen. And then, I did the research, And I found out the story about how Davey Coombs basically stole the outdoor series. And one track stood up to him, Glen Helen. So he used his media platform to essentially destroy this guy, called him crazy, called him greedy, called him all these different things. And it just wasn't true. But he understood he could say whatever he wanted with this platform and people believed it. And I was the first one that came back with some solid proof and said, no, 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 that's not what it was about. He called me screaming, you don't know what you're doing, and threatened me. I said, Davey, take your press pass. He threatened to take my press pass. I go, take your press pass, stuff it up your ass. I will buy my ticket and say what I see and what I want, because I'm not going to tell your narratives or be your puppet. And he lost his mind. He got so mad. Well, I went to a race later that year and they had the police escort me out. I bought a ticket and they had the police escort me out. And since they're the promoter and it's like a private event, they can do that. But they had me kicked out. And then I trashed them on YouTube, made fun of them, told them when the race comes to Vegas, you better not kick me out. It's my town. I was just kind of messing with them. And somebody in the comments section said, hey, I got a bunch of if you need them. And I commented below, I think I said like, I might take you up on it and like a laughing emoji or something. I was kidding. I had no intention to ever do anything with that. Well, they turned it over to the FBI. Somebody in this group has some serious juice and the FBI showed up at my house, basically accusing me of being a terrorist. And it gets even crazier. So at that Vegas event, they served me papers, send the FBI to my house, banned me from all events, cease and desist. I was getting a legal letter like every other day for like a week. But at the event, my friend is working in the fire and rescue out at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. This person calls me and says, what did you do? I go, what do you mean? They just handed your picture to everybody and said you're planning a act and to call immediately if they saw you. I think they were trying to get me shot if I did buy a ticket and show up, because I had a ticket, but I didn't go at that point because I was like, okay, this is getting pretty serious. And yeah, that's who we're dealing with.
Wow. So that they sent the FBI to your house, and how did that play out?
Well, I was freaked out for one. Anytime the FBI bangs on your door, it's not a good feeling. It was funny though, because I was actually on the phone and they bang on the door. I thought it was like a salesman. I'm like, dude, that guy's a dick. I open the door. I go, get out of here, man. I'm on the phone. And I shut the door on him. And then he bangs it again. And I open the door and he's got his badge and he pulled it back so I could see his gun. I'm like, oh, hey, I got to go. This is kind of serious. And, you know, at first, you know, these guys that came to my house, they just get the report, which they said was from Washington, which I don't know who they knew at Washington. They said Washington called and said, we have to come here and check this out. And by the end of it, they were laughing like, dude, I'm sorry we had to come over here. But when they send something from Washington, we got to come knock on the door.
Do you think do you think maybe the teams, the riders and all that, they just need to sue or, you know, sue the company, kind of like Michael Jordan did with the Jeffrey Kessler thing?
Yeah, like I said, it would be the easiest slam dunk antitrust lawsuit that I've ever seen. You look at UFC, who just lost, NASCAR, who just lost, and if you plug those two cases into AI and compare them with the things that Supercross does, it's like, no, this is way worse than what both of those guys just did. So yeah, it would be a slam dunk. Another easy fix is these manufacturers, Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki. So they pay millions of dollars to go racing every year. They're the ones paying the riders. When a rider wins a Supercross, they make $100,000, $150,000, whatever they bonus out the rider. That's the only way the guys make money. They don't make it off of the promoter purse. They're just free labor.
Like the gambling and all that stuff, they make anything off of that?
Nope. Riders get nothing. They have to go get their own sponsors. And here's actually what's crazy too. It is the most restrictive sport when it comes to sponsors. So if I have a team or I'm a rider and I want to make some money, go racing, and Nano Extreme sponsors me, they can come over to me at any time and say, yeah, we don't like Nano Extreme. You can't have them. And they've been known for doing this. There was a rider, Chad Reed, a former champion, built his own team. He got his own individual sponsors. They wouldn't let them sponsor him until they sponsored the series first. It was like a mob boss. They want theirs and then you can have yours, but we get ours first. So you tell these riders, we're not going to pay you, go get your sponsors. But then they also restrict the sponsors and kind of squeeze them. So if you're a sponsor, I have to pay the series before I can pay a rider. It's absolutely insane that they put up with it. But if these teams got together, like I said, the sport wouldn't exist without them. All I have to do is say, hey, Feld, we're not showing up next week unless you work a deal. We want some revenue sharing on the TV deal. And if you don't want to do that, we'll go to another series. And somebody else would create another series overnight.
Yeah, man. Mike Grundall, as we were talking about earlier, the founder of Planet Fitness and also one of the owners of Nano Extreme, he was telling me this. He told me, he's like, you got to interview this guy. He's like, there's a slam dunk case here. This is, and he seems to understand business very well. I mean, I listened to his, he was telling me about how he started Planet Fitness and like the whole story behind it. And I'm like, man, this is so brilliant. I was really just kind of blessed to hear the story, because I always wondered, like, how does somebody like that think? But he was telling me this is slam dunk.
Yeah, and I've been saying it on my show, and I'm hoping maybe your show will have somebody else. If there's a lawyer out there who specializes in this type of stuff and you want to make a name for yourself, here you go. Here's the case. If you can't win this one, you probably shouldn't be a lawyer.
Yeah, and this is another cool thing. I don't know if Mike told you this, but he's saying that basically as an investor in Nano Extreme, that all the profits for the month of January, he's actually going to be putting into lawyer fees, attorney fees, so that you guys can actually sue the promoters and the AMA, which is it's kind of amazing. He must really have a love for the sport as well.
And like I said, it's something, I don't even know how to describe it. It is almost like a cult. Like, we feel like this sport is ours, and we all bond together, because I remember as a kid having my parents and neighbor, you can't let your kid do that. We become protective of it because it gives us I can't tell you what it's done for me. It has given me a direction in life. I don't know where I would have been without motocross to teach me how. And I learned that you can work hard and get things. You can actually beat somebody that has more talent if you work hard, and all these things that it's given me, that it's given Mike. We want that for the next generation. And to see somebody like these circus promoters coming in here and treating riders the way they treated the poor kid that broke his neck, how on earth? I just don't know. It blows me away that a sport with such courageous athletes are such cowards to stand up. Nobody will say anything. I can't tell you how many people have called me in the sport and said, man, I wish I could say it. Well, you can. You can say it. The thing is, if a bunch of you guys said it, they wouldn't be able to do what they're doing to me. But they've made an example of me and scared people. Nobody wants to lose their sport. Nobody wants to be. I went to a race. I had to wear a disguise or they would have escorted me out from the police, which is insane.
That is insane, man. It seems like the control of the media is like a must for most of this. When I look at in the world anyway, and like just in general, like there's only a handful of people who control the media because they realize the power behind that. So people like you who are independent journalists, you guys are a real threat. And like, just like me back in 2020, I went up against some people in 2020 myself because of the things I was willing to say that the news wasn't saying. And so that's one of the biggest battles. Somebody needs to be able to like get into the media there and be able to like, do something with that as well, because as long as they control the words about what's going on, even if you guys are in the right, they're going to manipulate it in a way that looks like you guys are the bad guys.
Oh, they've taken the media platform that they have, and they've taken everybody who's under their thumb and tried so hard to paint me as this bitter, angry, and they say things that just are completely untrue. They tell everyone that I lie. I'm like, please tell me what I've said that I haven't proved. When they sent one of my cease and desist letters, it said slander, and it had like 10 things. I had proof of everything, every one. So I did a show and I showed it, and I go, just so you know, this is not slander. If it happened, if it truly happened, and I can prove that it happened, kiss my ass. That is not slander, but that's the threat. And everybody's so scared. And man, when did people lose their backbone?
Yeah, man. It just seems like they do you're kind of like the I wouldn't say the fall guy, but you're like the canary in the mine, like after they see the canary drop down it scares people. I mean, these guys seem to just, I mean, being civilized has its downfalls. We have a very civilized country, but people seem to be able to get away with stuff through a pen and ink, you know, just being able to write things off and do things behind the cloak of law or whatever. And it's so crazy what they can do with the power that they have through that kind of industry. So I'm hoping that, hoping for you guys' sake, you know, that there is an attorney and will take this case and see what happens. I'm curious to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and the thing is I would probably even back off a little bit on the pay if they actually considered the rider's safety, because these people haven't raced from Feld. They don't get it. They don't understand when you have a serious injury, that affects you throughout the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And the amount of people who have serious injuries racing dirt bikes, meanwhile, they're selling these tough blocks. Have you seen the tough blocks on the side of the track, the big block that marks the track?
I have seen that. I just to kind of put it in perspective, they were showing me a crash that happened where the guy fell out. They had thought he died, and then some people thought he died, and then they didn't even get him off the track, and somebody like ran over him.
Yes, they don't have enough people, and then the people they do have are volunteers for the weekend. I mean, you walk up, they give them a 15-minute briefing and put these riders' lives in their hands. Could you imagine a higher level sport doing that? And somebody's going to die on national TV. I thought that was 2 Saturdays ago when he was laying there. It was 90 seconds laying there, convulsing, unconscious, before anyone even got to him.
Yeah.
How does that happen? I mean, the amount of money that's available, at least at the minimum, take safety precautions. Now, it's a dangerous sport, and it'll always be dangerous, but you can at least have medics and take these blocks that people are landing on and crashing and move them off. The problem is they sold those. They get hundreds of thousands of dollars every event to sell those sponsorships. They put, and I talked to a former employee of Feld, and they put sponsor priority over safety every week. And they give sponsors the idea, I want to put a tough block on this jump because it looks good. Meanwhile, it could be dangerous. They don't care at all. It literally doesn't enter their mind. Last year, there's an organization called Road to Recovery that when an injured rider gets hurt, they do donations and they understand the process of how to get to rehab. And they're a great organization. And they weren't selling, but they were in the pits. And they had, if you did a $50 donation, they gave you a little prize bag. Feld kicked them out last year because they said it cut into their t-shirt sales. This is an organization, nonprofit, who truly helps the riders, and they were just trying to figure out ways to get more donations for injured riders. That is their product, and they kicked them out.
Wow.
Seriously, like I honestly, if I heard this and I didn't know it was happening, I'd be like, no one would do that. It's crazy, right?
Yeah, it just seems like they're treating it like a circus. Like you said, they're treating it as if like, okay, we might get more ratings if somebody gets hurt. That's what it just seems like. Of course, I don't know that that's in their head, but it sounds crazy to think that a winner of a race would receive so little money in a professional sport like that. I just don't understand.
Well, they offset it by saying, well, we give you the platform. We give you the platform. We're making stars. Your sponsor pays you money. And like I said, could you imagine if a NFL player said, oh yeah, team, they don't have to pay him because he's got a platform. He's going to get his own sponsor.
Yeah. Well, that just breeds like a problem with getting quality people to ride. I'm not saying there isn't quality people riding, because obviously there is, but who wants to risk their life for nothing? I mean, that's I know that people love the sport. Just like I'm 43 years old and I still do jiu-jitsu. I love it. And it's like kind of like that for me. Like if it wasn't for jiu-jitsu, I'm not sure how I'd be right now, like where my life would be. And so I get riding for the love, but they're missing out on so many people that could be stars just by not taking these precautions and not paying them. It just seems that way to me.
Well, see, and that's my point in the whole thing is they'll make more money. You make money by building guys. And when a guy becomes popular, like, have you heard of Hayden Deegan?
Yeah, I've heard of Hayden. The only reason I've heard of him is because of the conversations that were going on over at Mike's house. Yeah.
When you get these riders who transcend the sport, you want to keep them around. And if you don't have like right now, if you're a professional athlete and you can't get into that top 10 in a factory, you can make it about 2 or 3 years before you're completely broke. You can't do it. It doesn't work. What I'm asking is if they did share this revenue, and now if they weren't making revenue, I wouldn't say a word. But since the stadiums are full, they're getting, let's say, a safe estimate, 65 million a year on the media contract. They could quadruple guys' salaries and make it so they could actually live and make more than you can make more at Taco Bell than you can being a professional racer. The guys in the night show make less and they live like it too. They sleep in their vans. And in this day and age, it's just the sport would grow. You'd have guys around longer, you'd have more names, and the sport would exponentially get bigger and they'd make more money. And everyone would be a little bit happier. They don't offer health coverage, they don't offer anything.
Yeah, longevity is huge in sports because you look at people like Michael Jordan to this day, he's still making tons of money on sponsorships still. And these guys could be doing that as well if they were able to be set after doing it because you know, something that you have to risk your life doing. I feel that especially if the company's making a lot of money, that should be something set in stone. Be like, look, if you do this and you're successful, you're going to be set because this is, you put your life on the line. You know, how many things have they shrugged aside just to do this sport? And so for a long lasting athlete, that's good for them because that even a guy that's been retired for 5 years that was a champion, him still coming and promoting and doing that's good for them. It's good for like companies like Ducati and all the other companies too that needs to sponsor people. You know, they could do commercials and everything. It's wild.
Well, and right now, the way the sport's built, like I said, if those brands, Ducati, Triumph, Honda, if they decided to pull their advertising budgets, it's not a sport anymore. Now, if you add revenue sharing, you protect. Now, you're still going to have to go get outside sponsors, but the guys would at least be able to make a living until they got their next sponsor. It wouldn't be solely dependent on sponsor dollars from the manufacturers. And that's where it's just, I'm like, we've hit a point where we can transition to a real sport. It has an entertainment value far beyond just selling motorcycles. And their own greed is holding them back. Their own greed is keeping them from making a way more because they want that control. And that's it. It's just, I almost feel like they value the control more than the money. I just find it appalling that a promoter could sue a guy who's a quadriplegic for, you know, for everything that he has. Not only did he lose his ability to use his body due to their negligence, now they're suing him. It makes me want to vomit, man. I cannot believe the riders. If that alone won't inspire people to take a stand, I don't know what will.
I'm really interested to see how this goes down, and I think that, you know, it seems like I'm not a lawyer by any means. It just seems like there's a very cut and dry case here.
Well, let me ask you real quick. So, when you see a professional sport, what do you when you watch football, would you care if they were being taken advantage of, or would you just like to watch it? Like, what's your idea of athletes? Do they get to play a game? Because some people are like, oh, well, they chose to race, and I get that they're choosing to do it, but that doesn't make it okay to exploit them. What's your opinion? Am I overreacting?
Man, I one of the best examples that I can think of where a sport thrives and the people thrive when new ownership takes over is when UFC was taken over by Dana White. Before UFC, the rules weren't there. I mean, you had 400-pound guys fighting 150-pound soaking wet guys on the thing. They were able to kick people in the head. It was brutal, and I remember watching it. I actually have a friend. He actually uses Nano X, but he's had several near-death experiences because of neck injuries and stuff that, you know, probably took place during those days because those were brutal fights. But when it was taken over by somebody who seemed to actually not only care about the fighters but care about not making it brutal, a lot more people watched. You've seen like the UFC's gone huge now. I mean, it's massive, and before it was struggling to survive when it was taken over. So I think that I hate to see that. I couldn't even hardly watch the old UFCs. They were so brutal. I don't even, like, I like MMA and I like training and doing stuff like that, but there's times now when I'm still like, oh man, this is brutal. But the brutality of not protecting people that are experts in their field and they're putting their lives on the line, I think it's deplorable in my opinion.
And what you said there reminds me of Supercross promotes it as come see how high they jump and how this and that. They don't focus on the story. Like how UFC used to promote the violence. Remember they did that in the original, like, oh, the most violent sport ever, to the death. Once they changed and focused on the stories, how much did it grow? Now, if Supercross could stop focusing on that and build the stories, they'll make so much more money and it would be so much better.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So I hope that for your guys' industry, and I appreciate you coming on, Cooksey, man. It's been a blessing, and maybe I can hang out with you when I go to Las Vegas. I'm going to be in Las Vegas next month going on a podcast there, so I'll have to look you up. But, man, I appreciate it. How can people find your YouTube channel? I'm going to put a link in the description, but what is your YouTube channel?
Cooksey Media, pretty easy. You find me on Instagram, Chris Cooksey 61, and yeah, hit me up. Or email me at chriscookseymedia@gmail.com. I check as many as I can. I do try to get back to everybody. It's hard. Like, I know how we're channel size is about the same. I still try to get back to as many people as I can, but I can't spend my whole day doing it. So
yeah, it's tough because some people just want to contact you to, say, hey, check this 5-hour long video out.
yeah, I'm like, can you summarize it for me? I have a couple other things on the docket here today.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. And if you're watching this and you enjoyed this, hit the subscribe, go over and check out Cooksey's channel, pound the like button, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you. Thanks, Cooksey.
The world keeps lying, but he won't retreat on his quest for truth. Yeah. Truth, quest for truth. They can't stop me, they can't block me. Moving